develop another vehicle that will go to 2,000 meters. We're trying to raise $5 million.
Focus on climate issues, and we want to highlight this work, and especially the teams who are coming up with real solutions and not just talking about it. Because regardless whether these teams win or not, they're building companies and they're building the future. Yeah. And I hope they win, and I hope they receive additional funding, but they're here to stay.
Trying to win the $10 million. So, and that kind of honeypot of a big problem, attracting that much capital tends to create a transformation in that problem. We saw that in the space industry, where we had a $10 million SpaceX prize, and there was no innovation in the space industry until the prize was won. And now we have a $1 trillion space industry 10 years later.
We would have a great presence here. He felt that it would make a lot of sense to have an organization that is so focused on solutions toward solving climate issues to actually ring the closing bell. Wow.
Just look on the right. We are heading to Spring Place for an event called Leaders on Purpose. We've got CEOs from a bunch of Fortune 100 companies there. Then I'm on a panel. Leaders on Purpose is an initiative inspired by Paul Pullman, a lady called Tatiana. They focus on CEOs of big companies that are really focused on leadership and driving their companies forward with purpose. Fun, wow. At the same time. And we've just never seen any of that. For example, solar energy just by itself fundamentally changes the world by taking energy from scarcity to abundance. Blockchain fundamentally changes the world. AI fundamentally changes the world. We have about 20 of those hitting us. This is going to change all of our institutions and all of our organizations pretty fundamentally. And one of the leading characteristics in the book of what we call exponential organizations is what we call an MTP, or a massive transformative purpose. We ranked the Fortune 100 against this model. And so two things happened. One, Paul got excited by this idea, ordered every brand in Unilever to take on a purpose-driven future, and 4 years later, the 5 most profitable brands are the ones that had adopted it the most. Just in energy, we can see that we're going to reach energy abundance in the next few years, something that was never possible in human history. Energy's always been scarce, and we're about to hit energy abundance. I did a segment on Fox News, and I made the point that the reason Russia is invading Ukraine now is they have to. In a few years, their oil and gas won't be worth anything.
We are not set up to absorb that amount of disruption, and it evokes this immune system response. And the reason is, if I can go on a slight tangent, we all have at the back of our brains this little amygdala that's constantly scanning for danger. It's an evolutionary mechanism. When we were running around on the plains of Africa, if you heard a noise in the bushes, you ran, because bad news would kill you. Good news doesn't kill you, right? Good news, I might miss some fruit that I could eat. Bad news, I died if I ignored it. So we're actually 10 times more likely to pay attention to bad news than good news. Because the first reaction for most people is, oh my God, that car might kill somebody, ban the car. Because people don't want to be killed by robots, they'd much rather be killed by drunk people, which is what's happening today. So the challenge is, how do you then absorb disruptive innovation? Because the savior is going to be disruptive technologies. It's always been a major driver of progress. You could argue that technology may be the only driver of progress we've ever seen. Uber, and we're just not moving things along. So we've been actually working on this. We actually crafted and open sourced, first with private sector, a 10-week process that we run inside a big company that hacks culture at scale. Because for them, we have human longevity coming. And the question I posed to them to get them thinking about this was, your business model is to sell heaven, and we're going to end up with longevity where people aren't dying. Well, how are you going to sell heaven if people aren't dying? Looks like a Lamborghini, being designed and engineered and built in Sri Lanka, that hotbed of automotive innovation, right? Now here they're building this thing with no investment, no ecosystem, no experience, no understanding of the domain or industry expertise. The way, take Vitalik Buterin, gets together with a few friends, they ignore the professors, and boom, you have Ethereum, which is completely disrupting finance, right? And by the way, there's some bylaw that you have to be under 25 years old to work on the blockchain. It's like written somewhere. I tend to be really optimistic about the world right now, which is counter to what we're seeing out there. The reason is that about 5 or 10 years ago, you had to rely on our age group to do the right thing, right? And then the conversation was, okay, let's get out of the way of the younger generation. What I think we're seeing now is this permissionless innovation coming from bottom up that is pretty much unstoppable. It's irrelevant now what we do, and I think that'll transform the world. What we could do is give them guidance and help them focus on the right problems, right? And give them that direction setting. And I think that would be the most valuable service that the people in this room could do to guide that. And I think some of what you're doing hits that, and some of what you're doing hits that as well. So that's where I tend to be.
And I think there's a huge opportunity, and I think we're all here at Climate Week, which never even used to be called Climate Week, but because climate is the forcing function of bringing together people across industry, and I think for us to have to really look hard at how we're engaging other people in other places in the world. So I think one of the biggest challenges is how do you bring those voices that aren't as well known or seen, that are in different places around.
Friends that a couple of years ago moved to the Pacific Northwest because they thought that was the safest place in the country for climate change. Then that massive heat wave hit, and we have access to some of the top climate gurus. So I said, how does that fit into your models? And they're like, dude, we can't even create a model that has that happen. It's so outside the parameters of what we can see. So we have no idea what the hell's going on. I was like, that's really bad news that they can't even create a model that has that occur. So I was like, oh my God, we're really in real. A favorite anecdote I have when the Horizon Deepwater oil spill happened, it turns out the oil cleanup technology to clean out oil hasn't changed since the Exxon Valdez in the 80s, right? So, because there's no incentive to work on that. So Wendy Schmidt, Eric Schmidt's wife, said, we were working with her, and she said, let me throw up a prize very quickly. And the prize was, can you double the current efficiency of existing cleanup technologies by 2 times? Sure. Can you double that effectiveness? And if you do, $3 million prize. Second place team turns out to be a dentist and a tattoo artist, okay? Who, you can't make this up, who meet in Vegas because the dentist is getting a tattoo. The tattoo artist turns out to be an environmental tracker and is watching this prize. And the dentist goes, well, I know a lot about bonding agents and chemicals and sealants and stuff like that. So they get together, they form a team, they come up with a solution, they test it in a swimming pool, and they came in second place. Just fascinated to see what happens with climate change. I think it's still too late. Like the current predictions are we'll get to like 2.2 degrees over average. I think we'll end up at about 2.7, which is near catastrophic. So I think we're in for a lot of hurt. But I think it's going to be better than if we did nothing by a long shot.